The neighborhood buzzed with laughter, glasses clinking, and the soft strum of music from a Bluetooth speaker. Fairy lights glowed across manicured lawns, casting the gathering in a warm golden haze. At the center of it all, Laura and Michael Lawson stood arm in arm, the perfect hosts with their perfect smiles. "Your house looks stunning," a neighbor gushed, handing Laura a glass of wine. "You two really are the dream couple." Laura forced a smile, murmuring thanks. Her eyes flicked toward Michael, who was deep in conversation with two men from the Homeowners Association. He laughed at just the right moments, his hand resting lightly on her back as if rehearsed. To anyone watching, he was the embodiment of charm, steady, attentive, magnetic. But Laura saw something else. Behind his polished exterior, there was a hollowness in his eyes, a subtle stiffness in his smile. He was present yet far away, as though wearing a mask that only she could see cracking. "Laura," one of the wives said, pulling her from her thoughts. "How do you do it? You and Michael always look so in sync." Laura chuckled, though the sound rang false in her own ears. "It's all smoke and mirrors," she said lightly, earning laughter from the group. But inside, the words stuck like glass in her throat. The evening stretched on with neighbors praising their garden, their tasteful decor, their marriage. Each compliment felt like a weight pressing on Laura's chest. She remembered their wedding, Ewell's hand squeezing hers at the altar, his eyes once warm with devotion. Those same eyes now flickered cold when no one else was looking. At one point, she caught him staring across the yard, jaw tight, gaze locked on nothing in particular. When he noticed her watching, his smile snapped back into place. "You okay?" she asked quietly as they walked toward the refreshment table. "Of course," he replied smoothly. "Why wouldn't I be? You seemed distracted." He bent close, his whisper laced with warning. "Don't start, Laura. Not here." The chill in his tone stole her breath. She nodded quickly, masking it with another practiced smile as a neighbor approached to compliment Michael's latest promotion. The night wore on, filled with shallow conversations and clinking glasses. Laura felt like a ghost moving through her own life, her laughter rehearsed, her gestures mechanical. Yet every time she caught Michael's eye, she sensed the fracture widening, something hidden, something festering beneath their carefully curated image. Later, as the guests began to leave, Laura found herself alone at the edge of the lawn. The glow of the lights faded into shadows, and for a moment she allowed the mask to slip. Her smile faltered, replaced by the unease she carried like a secret. Michael joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. To anyone passing by, they were the picture of love, but his grip tightened just slightly, firm enough to remind her of the control he held. "We did well tonight," he murmured, voice low. She looked up at him, trying to read the storm beneath his calm exterior. "Did we?" she asked softly. He kissed her temple, his lips cool against her skin. "Of course. Everyone thinks we're perfect." Laura forced a nod, though her heart pounded with dread. Perfect. The word rang hollow. She could feel the cracks forming beneath the surface, invisible to their neighbors but glaringly clear to her. As the last guest's car pulled away, Michael's smile faded, leaving only the faintest trace of weariness in his eyes. He turned toward the house, keys jangling in his hand. Laura lingered outside, staring into the shadows creeping across the yard. Something told her the darkness wasn't out there. It was already inside, and soon it would show itself. The house lay in silence, emptied of laughter and neighbors, its polished charm stripped away. Laura moved through the quiet rooms, the echoes of the evening still buzzing in her head. Michael had gone upstairs hours earlier, claiming exhaustion. She lingered in the kitchen, sipping cold tea, unable to shake the feeling that perfection was cracking around her like fragile glass. Then she heard it, a faint scrape, followed by a soft thud, drifting down the hallway. She froze, listening. The sound came from the study, the one room Michael always kept locked. He had brushed off her curiosity for years. Just work files, nothing important. Don't stress yourself with it. Her bare feet carried her slowly toward the door. The polished brass handle gleamed under the dim hallway light. She pressed her ear against the wood. Another sound, a drawer shutting, papers rustling. Her stomach tightened. "Michael?" she whispered. No answer. She tested the knob. Locked, as always. Her heart pounded, fear and curiosity tangling in her chest. She knocked gently. "Michael, are you in there?" Silence. Then suddenly the sound of the lock turning. The door cracked open and Michael filled the frame, his expression cool but edged with irritation. "Why are you creeping around, Laura?" His voice was calm, too calm. She stepped back. "I heard something. I thought maybe what?" His eyes bore into hers, sharp in the dim light. "That I'm hiding monsters in here?" Her throat tightened. "You never let me in. I just wondered why." Michael sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. Then, in a softer tone, almost tender, "You're imagining things again. It's late. You're tired. You've always had a vivid mind, Em. You hear a creak and suddenly you're building stories around it." His words sank like stones, dragging her doubt to the surface. Was she imagining it? The noises had felt real, but he sounded so reasonable, so steady compared to her shaky voice. "I'm not imagining," she whispered, though even to herself it sounded weak. Michael leaned closer, his hand brushing her arm with practiced affection. "I locked the study because it's private. Every man needs a space, don't you think? You wouldn't want me rifling through your things, would you?" She shook her head faintly, caught between resistance and surrender. "Good," he said softly. His smile returned, but it didn't touch his eyes. "Then let's leave it at that." He pulled the door shut behind him with a quiet click. Laura stood in the hallway, her pulse racing. The study remained locked, its secret sealed inside, while Michael slipped past her, already retreating toward the bedroom. Alone again, Laura pressed her palm to the cool wood of the door. The quiet was heavier now, charged with something unspoken. She wanted to believe his explanation, to dismiss the unease as her imagination, but deep down she knew better. Whatever Michael kept behind that locked door was more than just work files, and one day it would come spilling out. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, bouncing off polished counters and spotless tiles. To any outsider, the Lawson household was pristine. Every detail immaculate, every corner staged like a magazine spread. But for Laura, the brightness only sharpened the shadows between her and Michael. She sat across from him at the breakfast table, stirring her coffee though she had no appetite. Michael scrolled through his phone, face unreadable, every now and then muttering responses to emails. Once his constant attention had been on her. Now it belonged to glowing screens and vague business matters. Her eyes drifted to the wedding photo framed on the wall. A younger Laura beamed in her lace gown, Michael beside her, gaze warm and protective. She remembered how he had kissed her knuckles before sliding the ring on her finger, whispering, "Forever, Em. Nothing will ever break us." The memory ached now. Forever had fractured into silence and distance. "Michael," she said carefully, "I called you 3 times yesterday. Why didn't you answer?" He looked up slowly, expression mild, as though humoring a child. "I didn't get any calls." Her pulse quickened. "Yes, you did. I checked my phone. They all went through." He set his phone down, smile faint but sharp. "Then your phone must be acting up again. You've been having issues for weeks, haven't you?" She frowned, doubt prickling at her. Had she? No, her phone had been fine. She remembered staring at the unanswered call log, frustration mounting. "It rang," she insisted. "I heard it." Michael leaned back, folding his arms. Sometimes you hear what you want to hear. You've always been imaginative." The word stung. He delivered it with such calm authority that her certainty faltered. Maybe she had misheard. Maybe she had imagined the ring. She shook her head quickly, unwilling to surrender to the fog he cast over her thoughts. "And the night before," she pressed, "you said you were at the office late. But I drove past. It was dark." A flicker crossed his eyes, something hard and sharp before he replaced it with another smile. "I was at the cafe down the street, working on my laptop. You must have just missed me." Laura's stomach churned. Always an explanation. Always quick and smooth. Yet the cracks were showing, hairline fractures in the glass facade of their marriage. She could feel the truth beneath his lies like splinters pressing under her skin. She rose from the table, crossing to the window. Outside, the garden gleamed, with roses Michael had planted for their anniversary years ago. She remembered how he used to bring her coffee in bed, whispering promises against her skin. Now his affection came only in fleeting gestures, usually when someone else was watching. Michael's voice broke through her reverie. "You've been tense lately. Suspicious. It's not healthy." She turned, meeting his gaze. "Maybe I wouldn't be suspicious if you stopped lying to me." For the briefest moment, anger flashed in his eyes, raw, unguarded. Then it was gone, replaced with mock concern. "This isn't like you. You used to trust me." Her chest tightened. That was the cruelty of it. He could twist blame with such precision that she ended up doubting her own sanity. She wanted to scream, to drag the truth out of him, but all that came out was a whisper. "I don't know who you are anymore." Michael stood walking toward her. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder, his touch both tender and suffocating. "I'm the same man I've always been. You're just seeing ghosts that aren't there." She flinched under his touch, but deep down she knew the ghosts weren't in her imagination. They were in him, lurking just beneath his perfect smile, and soon, she feared, they would step into the light. The television hummed softly in the background as Laura folded laundry in the living room. She barely registered the chatter of the morning news until the anchor's tone shifted, grave and deliberate. "Authorities are searching for 23-year-old Lily Hart, last seen leaving her shift at a diner in Brookfield late Friday night. Her family reported her missing the following morning." Laura froze, a white blouse clutched in her hands. The screen showed Lily's photo, a young woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile. Michael entered just then, tugging at his tie as he carried his coffee. His gaze flicked to the television, and for a split second his composure faltered. His hand tightened around the mug, knuckles blanching. "What's this?" he asked, voice too sharp. "A missing girl," Laura said, studying him carefully. "From Brookfield," his jaw flexed. "Terrible, but people go missing all the time." The dismissiveness rang false. Laura's eyes narrowed. "Brookfield. Isn't that where your last work trip was?" Michael's pause was almost imperceptible. He set his mug down a little too firmly, liquid sloshing over the rim. "Yes. But that's irrelevant. Don't start connecting dots that aren't there." Laura's pulse quickened. She hadn't accused him of anything, yet his defensiveness felt like a confession in itself. She pressed gently. "You were gone that night. You didn't answer my calls." Michael turned, his smile returning like a blade sheathed too quickly. "We've talked about this. My phone died. I was working. You're letting your imagination run wild again." Her stomach churned. The words were familiar, rehearsed, the same gaslighting that had left her doubting herself so many times before. Yet something about Lily's smile on the screen anchored her thoughts. She whispered almost to herself, "She looks so young." Michael's eyes flicked back to the photo. For a moment, something dark crossed his expression. Guilt, fear, or maybe anger. But it vanished before she could name it. He walked past her, his tone clipped. "Don't dwell on strangers' tragedies. It'll only make you miserable." "I?" Words chilled her. She wasn't sure if he was dismissing her empathy or protecting himself from suspicion. That evening, Laura couldn't stop replaying the timeline. Lily had vanished on Friday night, the same night Michael had claimed to be out late, the same night she had lain awake staring at her phone wondering why he hadn't answered. She opened her laptop, scrolling through articles about the case, each headline carved deeper into her unease. "Last seen alone. Abandoned car found. Near woods. Family pleads for answers." Michael appeared suddenly in the doorway. "What are you looking at?" She snapped the laptop shut, heart racing. "Just the news." His gaze lingered, hard and probing. Then he smirked faintly. "You always were drawn to tragedies. Maybe you should focus more on us instead." Laura forced a nod, but her hands trembled in her lap. When he left the room, she reopened the article, staring at Lily's photo until the edges blurred. Deep down, she knew Michael's trip and Lily's disappearance weren't coincidence. The perfect picture of their marriage was cracking wider, and through those cracks something sinister was beginning to show. The image of Lily Hart's smiling face wouldn't leave Laura's mind. It followed her through the halls of the house, glowing from the laptop screen, whispering in her thoughts. Michael's sharp reaction to the news replayed again and again, film reel stuck on loop. She felt as though the truth was lurking in the walls, waiting for her to find it. One quiet afternoon, while Michael was at work, Laura climbed into the attic. Dust motes danced in thin beams of light as she pulled aside old boxes of holiday decorations and forgotten furniture. She told herself she was looking for nothing in particular, but her heart beat with the desperate rhythm of someone searching for answers. Near the back, tucked behind a stack of yellowed yearbooks, she found a small wooden trunk. Its brass latch was tarnished, the wood cracked with age. She hesitated, then unlatched it. The lid groaned as it opened. Inside lay a bundle of letters, tied with a fraying ribbon. The paper was creased and worn, the ink faded but still legible. Laura's fingers trembled as she unfolded the first one. "Michael, you don't own me. You can't keep controlling me. If you push me again, I'll tell everyone who you really are." Her breath caught. The handwriting was sharp, almost frantic. The signature at the bottom read, "Sarah." She pulled out another. "I loved you once, but I don't know what this is anymore. You twist my words, make me doubt myself. I feel like I'm losing my mind around you." Laura's chest tightened. The words could have been her own. Letter after letter revealed the same pattern. Fiery passion twisted into volatility, devotion poisoned by manipulation. Sarah's voice grew more desperate with each note, like a woman trapped in a tightening. "The last letter was the most chilling. If anything happens to me, it will be because of you. I want someone to know that." Laura dropped the letter as though it had burned her. She stumbled back, the attic spinning. Sarah hadn't simply left Michael. She had disappeared, just as Lily now had. A creak downstairs snapped her out of her daze. She stuffed the letters back into the trunk, slammed it shut, and pressed her ear to the attic door. Silence. Just the settling of the house. Still, her pulse hammered. That evening, as Michael sat across from her at dinner, Laura could hardly swallow a bite. She studied him under the warm glow of the chandelier. The practiced smile, the charming conversation, the way he reached for her hand as though they were still newlyweds. But all she could see were Sarah's words. "You twist my words. Make me doubt myself." "You're quiet tonight," Michael said, his voice smooth as silk. Laura forced a smile. "Just tired." His thumb brushed over her knuckles, affectionate yet commanding. "Don't overthink, you always do that." Her stomach churned. How many times had Sarah heard those same words? How many women before her had been pulled into his orbit, only to vanish from it completely? Later, lying in bed beside him, Laura stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The letters replayed in her mind, each word carving deeper into her fear. She realized something with icy clarity. Michael wasn't just hiding secrets, he was burying them. And she was next in line to be buried if she didn't find the truth. In the stillness of the night, her gaze drifted toward the garage door at the end of the hall. She remembered the locked study, the sudden noises, the strange stains he always dismissed. The attic had given her Sarah, but the garage, she suspected, might hold something far worse. The letters from Sarah had left Laura shaken, her thoughts echoing with the warnings of a woman who had vanished from Michael's life without explanation. For days, she couldn't shake the gnawing certainty that if Sarah had left behind such desperate words, something terrible had happened to her. And if Michael had silenced Sarah, what had he done to Lily? That question drove her into the garage, one overcast afternoon while Michael was at work. The space smelled of oil and dust, shadows stretching across the concrete floor. She had never liked this part of the house. It felt foreign, claimed entirely by him. She rummaged through shelves stacked with old paint cans and toolboxes until her eyes caught the glint of metal. A small, heavy box sat tucked behind a stack of car parts. It was locked, but the latch looked flimsy. Heart hammering, Laura grabbed a screwdriver from the bench and forced it open. The sound of the latch snapping made her flinch, as though the whole world had heard. Inside lay two objects that froze her breath. A delicate silver necklace, its chain tangled and stained with something dark. Next to it, a scarf, once pale but now stiff, streaked with dried blood. Laura's knees buckled. She clutched the edge of the workbench to steady herself, bile rising in her throat. The scarf felt heavy in her hands, the metallic scent of blood still faintly clinging to the fabric even after time had dulled it. She imagined Lily wearing it, smiling as she left work, never knowing her path would cross with Michael's. Her chest heaved as panic flooded her. This was no longer suspicion, no longer doubt planted by gaslighting words. This was proof. Quickly, she shoved the items back into the box and forced it closed. She dragged it to the back of the shelf, covering it with a tarp and cans, as though burying evidence of a nightmare she wasn't ready to face. She wiped her hands on her jeans, trembling, and turned toward the door. That was when she heard it, the crunch of tires in the driveway. Michael was home early. Her pulse surged as she darted inside, shutting the garage door behind her. She forced her breathing steady, moving to the kitchen, pretending to sort through. Mail. A moment later, Michael walked in, loosening his tie, eyes flicking immediately to her. "You look pale," he said slowly. "What were you doing out there?" Laura's throat tightened. "Just cleaning. It was dusty." He studied her too long, his gaze sharp, dissecting. His lips curved into a faint smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You hate that garage." Funny choice for an afternoon chore. She forced a laugh, though it cracked. "I was bored." Michael stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch was gentle, but his eyes burned with quiet suspicion. "You're trembling, Laura. Why?" "I'm fine," she whispered. His hand lingered against her cheek, the pressure, subtle but suffocating. "You've been on edge lately, hearing things, imagining things. Are you sure you're not losing yourself a little?" Her stomach dropped. He was doing it again, turning her fear into fragility, her discovery into delusion. But the scarf's blood still burned in her memory, undeniable and raw. She forced herself to meet his gaze. "I'm just tired." Michael's smile widened, soft and cold. "Then rest. You need it." He kissed her forehead, a gesture of tenderness that felt more like possession, then turned toward the stairs. She watched him go, her body stiff with dread. Alone in the kitchen, Laura's hands clenched into fists. She knew now that Sarah's words had been true, and Lily's disappearance was no coincidence. The hidden box had given her proof, but Michael's watchful eyes told her something even more terrifying. He suspected she knew. The image of the bloodied scarf clung to Laura's thoughts like a stain she couldn't scrub away. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again. The stiff fabric, the dark streaks. Yet the more she tried to hold on to that certainty, the more Michael worked to unravel it. It began with her phone. One morning she found it dead despite charging it overnight. When she tried to restart it, the screen flickered, then went black again. She reached for the charger, but the cord had been neatly sliced, the copper wires exposed. Michael appeared in the doorway, sipping coffee. "Still having trouble with that phone?" His tone was casual, almost amused. "It worked fine yesterday," Laura murmured. "Now it won't even turn on." He shrugged. "Old thing's been glitching for months. Maybe you dropped it, didn't notice." Her mouth opened to protest, but his calm certainty smothered her words. Maybe she had dropped it. Maybe she was clumsier than she thought. Later that day, she discovered her journal missing, the one where she had written about Sarah's letters, about the scarf. When she asked Michael, he raised a brow. "Journal? You haven't kept one of those in years." But she remembered writing in it only days ago, pressing the pen into the paper so hard the ink bled through. The memory was clear, vivid. Still, his denial left her hollow, doubting her own grip on reality. At dinner, she pushed food around her plate, silent. Michael studied her, then reached across the table to take her hand. His touch was gentle, his smile warm enough to fool anyone. "Else, you're not yourself lately," he said softly. "You're pale, jumpy. Sometimes I worry you're not stable." Her stomach twisted. "I'm fine, I'm just tired." He squeezed her hand, his voice tender but edged with warning. "Tired people make mistakes. They see things that aren't there. Hear things that never happened. I don't want you hurting yourself by living in your head." Laura pulled her hand back, her chest tightening. "I'm not imagining things." His smile lingered, but his eyes were sharp. "Then prove it. Show me the scarf you swear you found. Show me Sarah's letters." "You can't, can you?" The blood drained from her face. He had hidden them, destroyed them maybe. Without the evidence, her words sounded like hysteria, just as he intended. Her reflection in the dining room mirror caught her eye. She looked pale, haunted, like the ghost of the woman who had once been vibrant and certain. Michael's voice droned in the background, soothing and poisonous all at once. "I love you, Laura," he said, rising to press a kiss against her temple. "But love only works when we trust each other. So stop chasing phantoms. Come back to me." She nodded faintly, though inside she screamed. The scarf was real, the blood was real. But now, trapped beneath his web of control, even she was beginning to wonder if she was losing her mind. And if she couldn't trust herself, who would? That night, as Michael slept soundly beside her, Laura lay awake, clutching the detective's card she had hidden deep in her purse. Harris's words echoed in her memory. "Trust your instincts." It was the only anchor she had left. The morning air was cool and brittle when Laura heard the doorbell ring. She flinched, nearly spilling her coffee. Michael had already left for work, his polished shoes clicking down the driveway hours earlier, leaving behind the suffocating quiet of the house. Laura opened the door cautiously. A man in his late 40s stood there, dressed in plain clothes but with a badge clipped discreetly to his belt. His eyes were sharp, steady, the kind that seemed to peel back layers without a word. "Mrs. Lawson?" he asked. Her throat tightened. "Yes?" He offered a polite nod. "Detective Carter, I'm speaking with neighbors regarding Lily Hart's disappearance. Do you have a few minutes?" The name sliced through her like glass. Laura stepped back, allowing him inside. The living room looked too pristine, too staged, as though trying to mask the rot beneath. She gestured for him to sit, but her hands shook as she tucked her hair behind her ear. Carter settled onto the couch, flipping open a small notebook. "Did you or your husband know Lily Hart?" Laura hesitated. Every instinct screamed caution. She imagined Michael appearing in the doorway, his smile polite, his eyes cold, listening for every syllable. I didn't know her," she said softly. "I'd seen her maybe. Around town." The detective's pen scratched across the page. "And your husband?" Her pulse hammered. "He mentioned her once, said she worked at a diner near his office." Carter studied her closely. "Do you recall where he was the night she went missing?" The question made her chest tighten. She remembered the unanswered calls, the darkened office, the smell of smoke on his clothes. But fear clamped her throat. If she spoke too freely, Carter might not be the only one to hear her words. He said, "He was working late," she managed. "That's all I know." The detective leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Mrs. Lawson, if there's anything you're holding back, anything that doesn't feel right, now is the time." Laura's hands twisted in her lap. She wanted to scream the truth, that she had found blood on a scarf, that Sarah's letters spoke of the same manipulation now suffocating her. But Michael's voice echoed in her mind, low and venomous. "If you ever try something like that again, you won't live to regret it." Her lips trembled. "I don't have proof, just things that don't add up." Carter studied her with a steady gaze. His tone softened, almost fatherly. "Sometimes instincts are all we have at first. Don't ignore them." He slid a card across the coffee table. "If you remember anything, call me directly." Laura reached for it, her fingers brushing the edge like it was a lifeline. "Thank you." A noise outside made her flinch, tires crunching over gravel. Michael's car pulling into the driveway. Her blood turned to ice. "You have to go," she whispered urgently. Carter rose without hesitation, slipping the notebook into his jacket. He nodded once. "We'll talk again." He moved swiftly toward the back door, disappearing just as the front door swung open. Michael's footsteps echoed in the hall. He entered the living room, eyes scanning. "Who were you talking to?" Laura forced a weak laugh, her voice too high. "Delivery guy, wrong address." Michael's gaze lingered, sharp and probing. He smiled faintly, but his eyes didn't soften. "Strange. I thought I saw someone leaving." Laura pressed the detective's card into her palm, hiding it in her pocket. Every word felt dangerous, every breath calculated. For the first time, though, she wasn't completely alone. Someone believed her, and Michael, she knew, would sense that shift. The next afternoon, Laura met Anna at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. She had chosen the place deliberately, far enough from the neighborhood to feel safe, tucked into the corner where the low hum of conversation might shield them from suspicion. Still, Laura's eyes darted to the door every few minutes, half expecting Michael to appear. Anna reached across the table, concern etched on her face. "Laura, you look exhausted. What's going on?" Laura hesitated. Words hovered on her lips, but tangled into silence. Then, with a shaky breath, she let pieces of the truth spill out. Michael's late nights, his defensiveness about Lily, the scarf hidden in the garage. Anna listened, her expression tightening with every detail. When Laura finally stopped, Anna leaned closer, voice low. "There's something I need to tell you. I wasn't sure if I should, but after what you just said." Laura's heart raced. "What is it?" Anna swallowed hard. "I saw Michael with Lily, about a week before she disappeared. They were outside the diner where she worked. He had her by the arm, and it didn't look friendly." The words hit Laura like a blow. "You're sure it was him?" Anna nodded firmly. "I'm positive. I almost called you, but I didn't want to cause trouble if it was nothing. Now I regret staying quiet." Laura's hands shook around her coffee cup. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. Michael's late-night work trip, his sudden anger when Lily's face appeared on the news, the bloodied scarf. Anna gripped her wrist. "Laura, you need to get out. If he's connected to this girl's disappearance, you can't stay in that house. You're not safe." Tears pricked Laura's eyes. "I know. But leaving him, it isn't simple. He watches everything I do. He makes me doubt myself. And if I try to run," Anna's voice softened, "then call the detective, let him help you. Don't wait until it's too late." Laura nodded faintly, though her chest ached with conflict. Marriage had been her anchor, even as it dragged her under. She remembered Michael at their wedding, whispering forever, promising devotion. A part of her still clung to that memory, desperate to believe it had been real. But Anna's eyes were fierce, urgent. "Listen to me, Laura. He's dangerous. I saw it with my own eyes. If he could hurt her, he could hurt you." The cafe door swung open, letting in a gust of wind. Laura flinched, her breath catching as a man entered. For a moment she thought it was Michael. Relief washed over her when it wasn't, but the panic lingered, heavy in her chest. She pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. "I'll think about it." Anna squeezed her hand tightly. "Don't just think, promise me you'll act." Laura couldn't bring herself to promise. She left the cafe with her heart pounding, Anna's warning echoing in her ears. When she pulled into the driveway, Michael's car was already there. His shadow moved across the living room curtains, waiting. Her grip tightened on the steering wheel. She knew Anna was right. She had to leave. But fear kept her frozen, and fear, she realized, was exactly what Michael counted on. The house was still, cloaked in the kind of silence that made Laura's skin prickle. She lay rigid in bed, staring at the ceiling. Michael had been restless all evening, pacing, pouring whiskey, sitting in silence only to rise again moments later. When the clock struck midnight, he finally entered the bedroom. He looked different. His shoulders slumped, his eyes rimmed red, his expression cracked with exhaustion. He sat on the edge of the bed, burying his face in his hands. "Laura," he whispered hoarsely. I can't keep this inside anymore. Her pulse spiked. She shifted slowly, careful not to startle him. Inside? He lifted his head, his eyes glassy. Lily, that girl. I didn't mean for it to happen. She got upset. She was screaming, threatening to tell people things. I tried to calm her down, but she fought me. She slipped, hit her head. It was an accident. You have to believe me. It was an accident. The words slammed into Laura like ice water. A confession. Not vague excuses, not polished lies. This time, the truth bleeding out. Her hands shook as she slid one under the blanket, gripping her phone. With trembling fingers, she opened the recording app. Her voice quavered. Why didn't you go to the police, Michael? His jaw tightened. Because no one would believe me. They'd twist it, say I killed her. You know how they are. And if I go down, everything goes down. Our life, our marriage, you. Don't you see? We're in this together. Laura bit her lip to keep from crying out. She pressed the record button. The screen glowed faintly beneath the blanket, capturing every poisonous word. Where is she, Michael? She whispered. His gaze flicked to her, hard and wounded at once. Don't ask me that. The less you know, the safer you are. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to scream, to claw the truth out of him, but her fear was louder. She stayed quiet, letting the silence press him forward. Michael's hands trembled as he rubbed his temples. I never wanted this. But she wouldn't stop. She threatened. To ruin me. I couldn't let that happen. Laura's heart pounded so violently she thought he might hear it. Every second felt like balancing on the edge of a blade. Then Michael's head snapped up. His eyes narrowed, sharp and suspicious. What are you doing under there? Laura froze. In one swift movement, he yanked the blanket away. The phone slipped from her grip, clattering onto the floor, the red recording light glowing like a beacon. Michael's face twisted with fury. You were recording me? Laura scrambled backward, her body pressed against the headboard. I had to. No one would believe me otherwise. He lunged, snatching the phone. With a roar, he smashed it against the wall. The screen shattered, pieces scattering across the carpet. His chest heaved as he loomed over her, rage radiating from every muscle. Do you realize what you've done? His voice was low, deadly. You think you can trap me? Make me your monster? You push and you pry, and then you act shocked when things spiral. Tears blurred Laura's vision. You killed her, Michael. Stop pretending it's my fault. For a heartbeat, the mask slipped entirely. His eyes were cold, predatory, stripped of charm. He leaned in, his whisper sharp enough to cut. If you ever betray me again, you won't live to regret it. The threat hung heavy in the room, pressing down on her chest. Then, as suddenly as the storm had erupted, he straightened, his expression smoothing back into eerie calm. Without another word, he left the bedroom, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Laura sat trembling, her chest heaving, the shards of her phone glittering in the darkness. Her only proof was gone, smashed to pieces, but the confession was burned into her memory. No matter what he destroyed, she had heard the truth. And she knew the storm wasn't over, it was only beginning. The house no longer felt like a home. Every wall seemed to lean inward, closing around Laura, trapping her with the echo of Michael's threat. If you ever betray me again, you won't live to regret it. She moved through the rooms like a ghost, heart pounding at every creak. Her shattered phone still lay on the bedroom floor, the broken glass reflecting fragments of her pale face. The only proof of his confession was gone, leaving her isolated once more. That evening, Michael returned. From his meeting with whiskey on his breath and an edge in his movements, he stalked into the living room where Laura sat stiffly on the couch, clutching a throw pillow like a shield. We need to talk, he said. His tone was calm, but his eyes burned with a predatory gleam. Laura forced herself to meet his gaze. About what you did? His lips curled into something between a sneer and a smile. Careful, words like that could ruin us both. Her breath hitched. You already ruined us. The mask cracked. With a roar, he hurled the whiskey glass against the wall. It exploded into shards, amber liquid dripping down like blood. Laura scrambled to her feet, heart hammering. Michael lunged, grabbing her wrist. His grip was iron, twisting her arm until she cried out. "You'll destroy everything," he shouted, face inches from hers. "Our life, our image, everything we built." "It's already destroyed," she gasped, struggling against him. His other hand tightened around her throat, not enough to choke, but enough to remind her how close he could come. Fear surged through her, raw and electric. Suddenly pounding erupted at the front door. "Police, open up!" Michael froze, his grip loosening for a fraction of a second. Laura wrenched free, stumbling back. Detective Carter's voice rang out again. "Michael Lawson! Open the door!" Michael's face twisted with panic. He darted toward the garage. Laura ran after him, shouting, "Stop him, he's running!" The door burst open. Officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Michael vanished into the garage, slamming the door behind. "Him." Carter caught Laura by the shoulders, steadying her trembling frame. "Stay back." The officers pushed forward, but Michael was already gone, out the side door, into the night. His car engine roared, tires screeching against the pavement as he sped away. Inside the garage, officers spread out, combing through the shadows. One of them called out, "Detective, over here." Laura followed Carter to the back wall. The tarp she had once used to cover the metal box was pulled aside. The box left carelessly open. Inside lay the silver necklace and the blood-stained scarf, stark and undeniable under the harsh beam of a flashlight. Her knees buckled. She covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. It was real. All of it. No more gaslighting. No more manipulation. The truth was here in steel and blood. Carter's jaw tightened. He looked at Laura with steady resolve. "This is enough to bury him." Laura nodded weakly, though her chest still heaved. The image of Michael, the perfect husband, the charming neighbor, the man who smiled for cameras and shook hands at barbecues, was shattered forever. What remained was the predator she had always sensed, now exposed to the world. But exposure didn't mean safety. Not yet. As officers cataloged the evidence, Carter guided Laura back inside. "We'll find him. He can't run forever." Laura clutched his arm, her voice breaking. "Hurry, because if he comes back before you do..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Carter's eyes hardened. "We won't let that happen." Still, as she glanced at the broken glass glittering on the living room floor, Laura knew one truth that kept her awake. Predators cornered by the truth don't surrender easily, and Michael, she feared, was far from finished. Michael's arrest came a week later. Police cornered him at a motel 2 towns over, his once polished appearance reduced to unshaven stubble and wild eyes. The news spread like fire. The picture-perfect husband of Willow Creek, captured for the murder of Lily Hart. Neighbors whispered in disbelief, their polite smiles curdling into horror. Laura watched the footage on television, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. There he was, escorted in handcuffs, still trying to hold his head high as if the cameras owed him respect. She knew that look, the mask of control, but this time it was cracked beyond repair. The trial was swift but relentless. The courtroom became a stage where every secret Michael had buried was dragged into the light. The blood-stained scarf, the silver necklace, witness statements about his temper, and finally, the resurfacing of Sarah's letters. Love turned toxic, words that painted him as a man of control and violence long before Lily disappeared. Detective Carter testified with clinical precision, reconstructing the timeline that tied Michael to Lily's final hours. The jury listened in grim silence as evidence stacked like bricks in a wall, too high for Michael to climb. But it was Laura's testimony that broke the façade completely. She sat in the witness box, hands trembling, her voice low but steady. She spoke of the locked study, the noises in the night, the missing journal. She described the scarf, the way Michael had twisted her words until she doubted herself, the confession he had whispered in the dark. When her voice faltered, she forced herself to continue. "He told me it was an accident, but you don't hide an accident. You don't gaslight your wife or destroy evidence unless you know you're guilty." Michael's glare from the defense table cut into her like knives. For years, that look had silenced her. But here, with the judge's gavel above them and the world watching, it had no power left. The prosecutor's closing words echoed in the chamber. Behind the perfect smile and polished reputation stood a man who preyed on women and silenced those who tried to expose him. But the truth has spoken louder than his lies. Michael erupted once, slamming his fist against the table, shouting that Laura was unstable, that everyone had been fooled by her paranoia. The outburst only sealed his fate. The mask was gone. The jury deliberated for less than a day. The verdict came swift and unanimous. Guilty of murder, guilty of tampering with evidence, guilty of years of deception. When the judge pronounced the sentence, life without parole, Laura exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Relief washed through her, but it was bitter, heavy with grief. Afterward, she stood outside the courthouse as reporters swarmed, microphones thrust in her face. "How do you feel now that justice has been served?" someone asked. Laura looked past them, her gaze distant. "Justice doesn't bring Lily back. It doesn't erase the years I lost to silence, but it ends him. And that's something." In the weeks that followed, the house felt emptier than ever. The neighbors avoided eye contact now, their once friendly smiles replaced with pity. She packed away the framed wedding photo, unable to look at the woman who had once believed in forever. At night, she sat by the window with a blanket around her shoulders, listening to the quiet. She was free. No more locked rooms, no more whispers, twisting her reality. But freedom came with scars, invisible yet deep. She whispered to herself, as if reminding the woman in the glass reflection, "The truth doesn't heal, but silence destroys, and I won't be silent again." The picture-perfect marriage was gone, shattered into fragments of lies, manipulation, and blood. What remained was Laura, broken, scarred, but finally her own.